friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 428. That in that neighborhood. My brothers and sisters. I'm still pissed off at that video that we watched from Evil Intentions yesterday, man. Like, I'm not gonna spoil it for y'all that didn't watch the video. And it was a great video. Great job by Jose Ortiz. But that freaking ending, when you get to the end of that video, you gonna be peed the F off, man. It was freaking ridiculous. And I've been thinking about it all day, y'all. I've been thinking about it all day. But I digress. It's time to get into another one of these true crime, horror, dark, deep, and mysterious, what the is going on type of videos. And today, it is Wednesday. So y'all know who we're about to go back to. Mike from that chapter. That chapter Wednesdays, y'all. And the title of the video is When Police Realize the Missing Hiker is a Killer. Now that's just crazy, man. That's just a crazy thought right there. The freaking police thinking that somebody is missing, thinking they may be a victim of a crime, you know what I'm saying? Or they may potentially be deceased. And come to find out, they may be the one who goddamn been making other people deceased. You know what I'm saying? They went from being a victim to a murderer and they still missing. That's why they was missing, because they was around here killing people. They trying to hide from y'all. It's just a crazy thought to think about. And I don't even know if that's exactly how the story gonna go, but we're about to see. But before we see, my brothers and sisters, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. Another That Chapter Wednesday. Y'all got what y'all need? Y'all ready to go? Then let's fucking go.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, I have for you 3 stories, all linked together by the Appalachian Trail, if you can believe that. We get a frightening stalker, an unsolved mystery, and a terrifying satanic killer in the woods. There's something so mysterious and spooky about the forests and the woods, and these 3 stories have that in spades. None of them will have you, running out the door to get your hiking boots on. I guarantee it. Please subscribe to see new crime videos every dang week. Now, let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. And get whatever you may need.
In May 2019, 4 hikers were going along the Appalachian Trail. This was in western regular Virginia in the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests. They were setting up camp there, the 4, that evening. They were all strangers to each other, or had been. But they began bonding with each other, getting to know each other, and that night they were setting up camp together. And they would be linked together forever by what happened. See, as they had been hiking, they all had separately heard rumors of this strange and dangerous guy who had been in the area. No one knew who he was or what his story was, just that you'd rather not bump into him if possible. They knew his name was Sovereign, which was this guy's trail name. When hiking the trail, everybody gets their own, trail name. That's what you're known by. You can't pick your own trail name. You have to be given it by, some habit you have. This guy, it appears, had picked Sovereign himself, and by how he was acting, nobody's going to argue with him. For example, of those 4 camping there that night, one was named Stronghold. Real name Ron Sanchez. Ron was a military veteran. He had done 3 tours in Iraq, and after returning from the last one, he would say he was in a very dark place. As a combat engineer, he had suffered some major injuries to his knees and his back, and he had witnessed some of his close friends getting hurt and even killed. He was discharged from the military in 2011, after 17 years. and he was diagnosed with PTSD and major depression. He was really going through the ringer. He found it hard to leave his apartment, he avoided people, and things were getting worse and worse until, big dogs, he found strength through walking. First just down to the store, then going fishing. He met his girlfriend on a hike in Arkansas, and now in 2019 he was determined to undertake the Appalachian Trail. He wanted the solitude and he needed a place to think. And so
I just think it's so cool. I'm not into hiking. Well, I never really even gave it a try. I never went hiking, but I don't think it's not an interest to me. But I think it's so cool how so many people just love the outdoors and just the thought of walking down trails and seeing Mother Nature in its entirety. You know what I'm saying? Away from all the city lights and all the electronics and all that. You know what I'm saying, man? And that actually like takes stress off of them like it's doing for him. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a stress reliever, just going walking in the woods, trailing in the woods, walking, hiking in the woods. You know what I'm saying, man? I just think it's so cool, man, that us as humans, we all got our own different interests. I know I just made up a word and stuff though, man, that actually like is stress relievers for us, are stress relievers for us. You know what I'm saying? It's just so freaking cool. But I do gotta say this real quick too, y'all. If there was a rumor of this Sovereign guy walking around in the woods, I'm not saying that I wouldn't go on this hiking trip, but I best believe I'm coming with the clip. If you know what I'm saying, man, I'm coming strapped up. Ain't nowhere in the hell I'm going on this trip and I ain't strapped up, and the Sovereign man supposedly is out here. Fuck that. But let's go.
in January of that year, he set out from the southern end of the Appalachian Trail in Georgia. He actually ended up quitting, thrown in the towel midway, but after a few weeks back home in Oklahoma, he was like, can't get it out of my head, I need to get back there and finish this. He was a lad who saw things through, fair play to him. He was feeling, for the first time in years, optimistic and hopeful, ready to talk about, the things he had been through and heal. Another member of that four-person group was Kirby Morell, aka Turk. Kirby was from Canada, and she was calling her husband the entire time she was hiking by herself. She had just finished her master's thesis at sea lettuce, if you can believe that, and, like Ron, she too was hiking back north, planning to make it all the way to Maine before returning home. She'd been hiking for a few months at this stage, but she actually ran into trouble just a few days earlier when a black bear stole all her food, and she too had been hearing reports about Sovereign stalking the area. See, these whispers had been passed amongst the hikers, going back and forth, saying, hey, listen, good luck to you, but just beware, there's like a really strange, weird guy out there. He seems, a bit cuckoo. Hikers would say he was a crazy sumbitch who was hissing at them, saying, he was going to kill them, asking if they wanted to die, brandishing a big fuck-off machete. He was saying he was captain of the hit squad. Fair play. In fact, on May 10th, she'd been eating at a diner near the trail, and looking at the window, she saw him. Images of him had been circulating on hikers' groups on social media. She even wrote in the trail register of the diner, I totally just saw Sovereign heading Nobo, northbound, from the window here. Beware, guys.
4 be advised, we received several calls about a male subject who goes by the name of Sovereign.
Then, after she left that diner, just a couple hours back in the trail, guess what? She met him. He was there with his dog, and Kirby, or Turk as her trail name was, she would say she went full Canadian. She was just like the nicest person ever. She was showering him with compliments, just saying, oh, you're just great, all that kind of stuff. Just making sure he, doesn't have any excuse to lose the rag. They parted ways, and then later Kirby bumped into Ron. They started hiking together, and they met up with 2 other hikers. They decided to all camp together. They were sitting there shooting the shit, telling good ones. And then, who stumbles into their camp but Sovereign? He himself.
This shit kind of like a horror movie. Like somebody can make a movie about this man, the mysterious man on the trail with the other 4 hikers in the woods. Then they going to set up a campsite, and then the mysterious man pops up at their campsite. You know what I'm saying, man? I just hope it don't end that badly. Like I know it's finna end, it's finna be horrible, but I hope it's just not that horrible. I don't know, but let's go.
Himself decided to camp nearby. He put dental floss all up around his camp. He was leaving his shit all over the place, and he was just there with his guitar, singing, acting, they would say extremely unstable. Then, as they all retreated into their tents, he walked up to their camp, started circling it like a shark, threatening to pour gasoline over their tents and burn them alive. It was around midnight with Sovereign just there the entire time whispering into their tents about what he was going to do to them that they all decided, okay, yeah, time to go. They began packing up when Sovereign approached them with a machete. Now, two of the campers at this point said, we're out. They booked it into the woods, but...
You see why I said earlier, if I was to go out here with me and three of y'all, my brothers and sisters, we come and scrap the F up, Second Amendment. For real, like, I'm not playing with Sovereign ass. You come at me or my brothers and sisters with a machete and let me show you what gonna happen. Ain't gonna be no playing around, my boy. It gonna be chitty chitty bang bang real quick. Let's go.
Ron, Stronghold, he wasn't gonna run. He tried to reason with him, but there's no talking with Crazy, and Sovereign began slashing and stabbing at Ron. Kirby was watching this, horrified by what Sovereign was doing to Ron. She then booked it herself. She began sprinting through the woods, but as she was running, she could hear Sovereign chasing her, getting closer and closer, and eventually Kirby decided she couldn't run anymore. She turned around to face him. She put her hands up to surrender when he jumped on top of her with the machete. Sovereign's real name was James Jordan. James grew up on Cape Cod in a very poor area. His dad died of an overdose when he was just 6 years old, and his mom was a heavy drinker. He had mental health issues from Jump Street, and crime was always a part of his life. He refused counseling, he would steal, he would destroy. He went between Vermont and Cape Cod, selling drugs, and eventually began hitching further afield, sleeping in the woods. Though the arrests were never far away, usually related to his mental health, walking down the road naked, that kind of stuff. Eventually he ended up on the trail. He in fact had been arrested 2 weeks before this incident, after hikers reported the threats he was making. Police confiscated a 17-inch knife and charged him with drug and alcohol offenses, but he was released on probation after a week.
He goes by the name Sovereign on the trail. A report said he was slurring his words, carrying drugs, and also a 20-inch knife.
And he went back to the trail. A Facebook post just a few days before the incident shows he was not in great form. Just got free from my 7 years, got being scrambled. I'm the king of the Get 'em squad. I got a clear hall pass, 7 hammers, Jay Gutter just touched down and got home. We were free and we're going to release every POW they took from my state. Bid homies, okay, it just keeps going on and on and on.
Like, how could you let somebody out like this, man? All the warning signs, all the red flags, and you still let them go free.
The two hikers who ran immediately, they were the ones who made it. They called 911 and they alerted the authorities about what had just happened here. The police, or a tactical team, they raced to the scene as quickly as they could, which was a 5-mile hike through the woods to get to the trail of where this had happened. Right, and as they were hiking, they came across another tent. Inside were 2 other campers who had heard what had just happened. They had heard the screaming and the shouting and the people running, and they were terrified. As you can imagine, they were in there terrified, hearing blood-curdling screams in the middle of the night. They were too afraid to even leave their tents. The police went, checked on them. As I said, they were scared, but they were fine. The police then continued walking towards where this incident had happened, and as they did, they turned. They looked in a bush near where this tent was. They saw a man crouching in there. It was James Jordan. He had been stalking these 2 people as well. He was covered in blood and he had a big knife in his hand. It was pretty incredible timing that the police showed up when they did. And James Jordan, he surrendered to the police peacefully.
30-year-old Jim Jordan.
Ain't God good? God is good, man. At least he ain't get them 2. After he killed them, I don't think he killed all of them, but after he attacked those 4 people at that campsite, he was finna go all around that trail trying to cause as much fucking havoc, wreak as much havoc as he possibly could, man. He was about to go on a real killing spree. Good timing by the police, man. Great timing.
Jordan, now under arrest in Virginia after allegedly attacking a couple on the Appalachian Trail, stabbing the man to death and severely injuring the woman.
We went up there, and that's where we located the suspect and the victim. He wisely just surrendered himself.
Ron sadly passed away, a man who had been through so much and was finally healing. It's no surprise he didn't run, he was nicknamed Stronghold after all. And Kirby, she made it. James had jumped on her, stabbing again and again. She would have more than 40 lacerations. Her face had been slashed to the bone. When he finally paused in the stabbing, Kirby, she played dead. He eventually got up and walked away, and Kirby, covered in blood, managed to get away from him in the night, blood gushing all over, holding her arm which was barely hanging on. 10 months later, she completed the trail. As for James Jordan, he was later found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was committed to a psychiatric institution and won't see the light of day until the court agrees he is no longer a risk to society. You know, it can be hard.
Here we go again. I'm about to get mad again early in the video, my brothers and sisters. All this insanity shit. That's just another way of saying that at the end of the day, he got a possibility of getting out if he look like he is back sane again. If he stop acting crazy, then he got a possibility of getting out. After murdering that man and trying to murder that lady and the other 2 people who got away. And the other 2 people at the other tent. He murdered somebody, but he still got a chance to get out because he is crazy right now. But maybe in the future, he will get smart. Get the hell out of here, y'all. Man, let's just go.
To track killers on the trail. It was kind of just like pure luck that the police actually bumped into James Jordan, or Sovereign, when they did, right before he was most likely going to attack other campers. But if you're not on the trail and you don't want to be tracked, what would you use? Why, NordVPN, of course.
Come Mike with a commercial, but for real, y'all, man, that shit just bullshit, man. I just gotta call a spade, my brothers and sisters. Insanity. Get the hell out of here, man, with that bullshit and lock him up for the rest of his life and just be done with it. If he crazy, get his crazy ass off the streets. Let's go.
Chapter, you can get an exclusive deal. Exclusive because guess what? Me and Nord were down at the water cooler just shooting shit, and they told me it's just for you. Just for you. They like you. If you get a 2-year plan, you get an extra 4 months for free on top. And it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Nord is like your all-in-one keep-you-safe thing that keeps you safe online. So once again, please go to nordvpn.com/thatchapter to get a 2-year plan. And guess what? You get 4 months for free on top. Thank you so much to NordVPN for supporting That Chapter. Now let's take a hike. Literally with our next story. On the morning of August 12th, 2011, a group of hikers were hiking through the exact same forest Sovereign was. Yes, the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests. This was a fair bit away from that incident, but this would be no less shocking. See, a few miles into their trek, they stumbled across something half buried in the dirt. They noticed it first by the smell. The smell of decaying flesh. Getting closer, they saw what looked like a person, half buried in the undergrowth and the dirt. They called the police. It was determined to be the body of an adult male, and the medical examiner would later identify the body being that of Scott Lilly, 30 years of age, from South Bend, Indiana. They were able to determine he had been dead for about 12 days, give or take, by the time his half-buried body was found by the hikers. It would also be determined that Scott had been murdered. Asphyxiation by suffocation would be listed as the cause of death. Scott was not an experienced hiker at all. He had started the trail about 2 months before his body was discovered. Stonewall was his trail name. Likely so, as Scott was a Civil War aficionado. Mad for it he was. And so he was named after Stonewall Jackson, a commander of the Confederates. He'd been going south, wasn't intending to do the entire trail. From Maryland to the end of the trail in Georgia was as far as he wanted to go, but he never made it. He had been there alone, and last he had been seen was on July 31st, near a mountain called The Priest.
I don't know a lot about hiking, y'all, but I just feel like I'm right when I say this. You should never go hiking alone. Like, seriously, man, I don't think nobody should be going hiking alone, man, especially on big-ass trails like this. Not only because of people, potential murderers, you got to think about the freaking animals. Like that one lady who had her food stole by a black bear. There's bears out there, mountain lions, all type of shit. And also, what if you fall or get hurt or injured to the point where you can't move no more? You know what I'm saying? Like, and you just stuck in the middle of nowhere. Like, I feel like when you go hiking, man, you should at least have at least one more person with you. But then, like I said, though, I don't know a lot about hiking, but I would just presume that to be the safest thing to do. Let's go.
About 15, 16 miles from where his body was found. For Scott, this had been a journey of self-discovery, and also to visit some areas of importance during the war. But he ran into someone along the way while he was out there alone. When his mom last spoke to him on the phone, she would say he was so happy. She would say he was the happiest she'd ever heard from him in his life. He was loving it. A lot of Scott's items were missing. A backpack, shoes, a trail handbook. None were found, but maybe had been buried or hidden by the killer. Perhaps his body had been buried better, but scavenging animals dug it up and then he was found. So his cause of death, right, was asphyxiation by suffocation, not asphyxiation by strangulation, which means suffocation. Somebody was holding their hand over his nose and mouth. He couldn't breathe. He wasn't strangled. This is even a more slower way to kill someone. Whoever did it, they must have been pretty strong. Maybe they had snuck up on him while he'd been camping in the middle of the night and just held him down till he died. He did have items on him, but nothing of like extreme value that you'd be like, oh hey, I want that. Just some regular ass clothing, you know, hiking stuff. He wasn't carrying gold bars or anything out there. He was known as a quiet, nice guy. As his body was found on federal land, the FBI took over the investigation from the start. And guess what? It's still kind of at the start. Dozens and dozens of interviews were performed. A $10,000 reward was offered for information leading to an arrest, but still the case remains unsolved. The FBI has said they are looking for these people in relation to the murder. All trail names: Mr. Coffee, White Wolf, Papa Smurf, Combat Gizmo, and Space Cadet. And the killer of Scott Lilly is still out there.
Oh man, I ain't expect that one. That's elfed up. Like I said, y'all, man, just be safe. Y'all know I said at the end of every video, I say be safe. But like, if you going on camping trips, trails, whatever. And I know another thing, because I was talking about how it'd be a stress reliever to a lot of people who love to go camping and go hiking and all that, get out in Mother Nature. One thing that some people really enjoy about it is being out there by themselves, away from everybody and everything. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. But it's just like, man, we don't even know who did it. I thought we were going to find out who did it, my brothers and sisters. Rest in peace to him, man. Rest in peace. And hopefully one day we'll get some answers.
In May 2008, two men were on a fishing trip in the, well, you guessed it, George Washington and Jefferson National Forests. I didn't even intentionally plan for all these stories to take place there. They just do. As I said at the start, I won't be running out the door to go there. That was Scott Johnston and Sean Farmer. They were chilling, having a good time, looking for a biggin. They both had been to this area many times. They were the two best friends. It was their alone time, just the lads. And so they were there, gonna spend a few days there doing their thing, when, on May 6th, 2008, Scott Johnston, who's out fishing, Sean was back at the camp. A man, a hiker, just happened to stumble across Scott. Said, hell yeah. Hiker asked if he could join him. This hiker gave his name as Ricky Williams, and he was sort of interesting looking. He was described as gaunt, scraggly kind of looking. He looked like he'd been out, in the wild for a few days at this point. He was kind of like looking like shit. But he had a brand new expensive jacket on, brand new boots on. Scott and Sean felt odd about him. He seemed kind of weird. In fact, one of their thoughts was he's like some alcoholic who's been kicked out of his house. But they were like, they took pity on him. They're like, here, come on. Come back to ours, you can chow down. Later that evening, the three men were back at camp. Sean, Scott, and Ricky. And they were gobbling down some trout, listening to some music and chilling. It was late. The moon had risen when Ricky said, thanks so much for the meal. I'm going to head back to my own camp. He left Sean and Scott there, disappearing into the growing darkness around them. It was then a gunshot rang out, and Sean Farmer was shot in the face. Scott ran for the trees as soon as he realized he had heard a gunshot, and as he did, he realized that he had been shot in the neck. Sean was shot again, this time in the chest, and he somehow managed to stumble to the nearest car, which was Scott's car, but he was silently followed the entire time by Ricky pointing the gun at him. Sean...
And see, this is just a perfect example of why we should just never trust strangers. Just don't trust strangers. Point blank, period, my brothers and sisters. Because if I was on the trail with one of my brothers or one of y'all, my sisters out there, hey, man, we would have had a conversation. I would have been like, no, bro, you can't come back to our camp, man. F that ish. You know what I'm saying? These videos got me paranoid than a mother about trusting anybody other than people that I know. Oh, man. Let's go.
Sean made it into his car and began driving, and Scott ran towards the road to meet the car. As he did, he was shot again in the back. He managed to stumble onto the road. Sean stopped and he got in, and they both drove completely covered in blood and losing consciousness. See, as they had been eating and having a good time with Ricky, they had no idea that 27 years earlier and less than a mile away, this Ricky had brutally murdered 2 people. Ricky's real name was Randall Smith.
Wow.
Randall Lee Smith was born in 1953, growing up in Pearisburg, Virginia, raised by a mother who was seemingly a bit of an oddball. She never spoke with neighbors, dressed Randall in girls' clothing for some reason. Randall grew up a loner. Gee, wonder why. On weekends, though, he often took to the nearby Appalachian Trail. He was clearly more comfortable in the woods than he was fitting in with people. But when he did try and fit in with people, he was not very good at it. He quickly gained a reputation for just outlandish lies. Pure bullshitter. He would hold you with lies. People began calling him L.R. for Lion Randall. He worked in various jobs, never for too long, but he always returned to the Appalachian Trail. It was in 1981 that 2 hikers were on the trail near Pearisburg. In May, 2 27-year-old social workers from Maine, Susan Ramsey and Robert Manford, decided to do the hike in an effort to raise money for a mental health charity. As Susan and Robert were going on the hike, they just happened to bump into another hiker, a female hiker, and the 3 of them were going along for a bit, having a great old time, when they had to split up. They told this other hiker, "We'll meet you at this area up the trail." But Robert and Susan, they never showed. This other hiker got worried, scared about them, contacted the authorities to report them missing. Police went out on the trail and began asking others, "Hey, have you seen these 2 people?" Most said no, except for one hiker who told the police they'd seen the pair near Wapiti Shelter, a little log structure. And they were with, this hiker said, quote, "a strange-looking man." So the police, they kept searching. They went to a nearby country store where, hikers would stock up, and they were asking again, "Hey, if these 2 hikers are missing, anybody know who they are? Or where they are?" An employee told the police, "Oh yeah, there's a guy going around saying, yeah, he's heard about these 2 missing hikers, and he knows exactly what had happened to them." They said his name was Lion Randall. But I mean, if his name is Lion Randall, does he really? More hikers would come forward saying that they had seen Susan and Robert with a man acting, again, quote, eerie. And so they went to Wapiti Shelter, and they found no sign of them there. They hadn't been seen in almost 2 weeks by now. It was then they noticed something on the ground, between the floorboards. It looked like a substance. It was blood. It was Robert's blood, leaking between the floorboards of the shelter. Investigators fanned out, and about 30 yards away they found a pile of leaves, as if they were covering up something. Digging it up underneath was a sleeping bag, buried in the dirt. But the sleeping bag wasn't empty. Inside the sleeping bag was Susan. This was a crime scene. And the next day, almost right beside where Susan had been buried, they found another sleeping bag. Inside that was Robert. It would be determined that both Susan and Robert did in fact make it to Wapiti Shelter. They'd settled in for the night, having a big meal and some Bacardi rum. However, the festivities didn't last. Robert had been shot in the head. Susan had defensive wounds on her. She'd been beaten and stabbed to death. Police believed she also had been sexually assaulted. The bodies had been dragged out of the shelter and then buried in their sleeping bags. They had been attacked while they slept. It was bloody fingerprints on a book they found at the crime scene that led them to Randall Smith. In a previous job, he had to give the old... When they went to his home in Pearsburg, they found it empty. But in his home, they found a note which said, "I have been kidnapped by these two killers, and he was going to be killed." It seemed like Randall probably knew the police were going to find him, and so he had left this note in his house to make it look like he also was a victim. Why not? He was on the run for about a month before police found him.
Okay, now that's just bullshit what he trying to do. Really, bro? And one thing, y'all, this is about the first time that he murdered some people 27 years ago. So are we finna hear that he actually got out of prison after being caught? I was thinking he never had got caught for what he had did to Susan, and I can't remember the man name, them 27 years ago. I'm thinking he had got away with it. But you mean to tell me that the police caught him, put him in prison, and let him back out for him to do the same thing again? Is that what we doing with this story? Let's see. I'm about to get hot. Hey, y'all know how I get, man.
At a motel. Randall claimed to have amnesia, didn't know where or even who he was. He looked like he'd been on the trail the entire time. How they really nailed him was that Randall, when they got him and arrested him, Randall was covered in like bug bites and rashes from living out rough on the trail, and so they brought him to a hospital to get this treated. Randall had to sign his name. He signed it, Randall Lee Smith. Got him. Randall got a plea bargain. He pled guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 30 years. Randall ended up...
That's bullshit, man. That's just fucking bullshit, y'all. That's fucking bullshit, man. This is the second day in a row where we watch a story where a person murder somebody, and then they get a couple of years and they back out on the street. And this time, this man did it again. 30 years for 2 people, so 15 years apiece. That's all your life was worth, was 15 years in prison for somebody. They can take your life and all they got to go do is 15 years. Just think about how crazy it is. Then why he getting charged with second-degree murder? I just hate all these different first degree, second degree, all this. Like, I understand manslaughter a little bit, but some of this stuff just need to cut out, man. This man should have been in prison for the rest of his life, point blank, period.
Up serving 15 years before he was paroled. Model inmates, apparently.
I take that back. It wasn't 15 years apiece. It was 7.5 years. Your life was worth 7.5 years for this man going to prison. He killed 2 of them. You know what I'm saying? 7.5, 15. Like, you just break it down and look at it like that. It just sounds so effed up, man. It sounds absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, where's the value on human life in the justice system? Why do they let these murderers get out? And that's why people keep murdering. Because a lot of them think they're going to get away with it. Then they may be delusional in that, but some of them do. A lot of them also think that they don't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? They don't care if they get caught. They'll tell you straight up, yeah, I did this, I did that. But it's also a lot of them that think, if I do this and if I get caught, I may be gonna only do a little time in prison. You know what I'm saying? I may not have to spend the rest of my life in prison. I put it to you that way because he got charged with 30 years, and that's a long time. But 7.5 years, that is nothing compared to what he did, man. A lot of these murderers out here keep doing this shit, y'all, because they see murderers get away with it. Even though he didn't technically get away with it, but he still got away with it because he back out on the streets free. Once again, I'm about to goddamn fuck my mic up. Let's go.
And when he got out, he did odd jobs around the place. Still lying Randall, though. He lied about his past. Lied about having a girlfriend, that old one, and his work. He'd hole you with lies. The lies were just endless for old Randall. In fact, even to this day, not a lot of people really know anything about him because you can't tell what's bullshit and what's real. He was pretty reclusive, but he still returned to the trail. Then, in the year 2008, his mom died. So, Randall packed up the house, packed up a bag, went out into the woods with his dog, and he was never seen by the people there again. Yeah, people started to notice. They saw mail, started to pile up outside his house, and sort of like, geez, where's old Randall? Now, they all knew he was a killer. But missing posters, they went up, word began to spread, even reaching the trail. But nobody knew where he was. That was until a few weeks later, when he stumbled upon Scott Johnston and Sean Farmer's fishing camp. Stumbled upon them carrying his .22 revolver. Scott and Sean managed to drive to the nearest town. Barely. They were covered in blood from head to toe. Scott had to plug his neck with his finger.
And we were all sitting around the fire. He was sitting here, Sean was sitting here, and I was sitting right here. And then he got up, you know, right here, walked around Sean, got to right here, you know, told his dog that was laying in front of my tent. He said, "Come on, boy, let's go." Went bam, bam. And I jumped up and ran. He went bam, shot me in the back. Boom, and then shot Sean again. That's where I ran behind right here. Yeah. I ran back. And I got down back behind here, you know. And then I walked around and went all the way down to the road. And then Sean picked me up down there about where...
They managed to pound on a house's door where the lights were finally on. 911 was called. Now, both Sean and...
Hey, shout out to Sean and Scott though, man. Just the fact that they didn't like run away from each other or leave one behind. You know what I'm saying? They got up out of there together. Even though they have been shot multiple times, they still had the care and the thinking to, I can't leave my homeboy. You know what I'm saying? I can't go without him. I'd rather die before I go without him. I got to get him to safety just as much as I got to get myself to safety. Shout out to them for that, man, because y'all know my brothers and sisters, a lot of people out here wouldn't do that. They'll be all for themselves. They would have hopped in that damn car and took off, and left Sean or Scott would have left their ass, would have left them there. Y'all already know, man. So shout out to them, man. Them true besties right there. Them true friends. Them true ride or dies.
Scott would survive. And at the scene, when the police and the EMTs and all that showed up, they asked for a description of who had done this to you. And Sean couldn't talk because he had been shot in the face. Scott told him he was an older, gaunt-looking fella with white hair. And one of the occupants at the house they had knocked at, he was like, ding, 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 ding. He ran into his house, found an old picture of Randall Smith, and was like, is this him? Scott said, I am 100% sure that is the guy who tried to kill us. In the meantime, a state trooper was driving in the area, hearing the reports of this attempted double homicide. As they were driving, they saw Scott's truck going in the opposite direction. That was the truck that had been left behind. Randall stole it. Upon seeing the police,
Wow.
Randall put the pedal down, tried to empty the gas tank, and he booked it. State trooper whirled around, went after him. After driving for just a couple of minutes though, Randall, in the dark, heavily forested area, his truck went off the road. He flipped, and that was the end of the chase. The state trooper got up to him, said he will always remember the look in Randall Smith's eyes, just pure white, pure hatred. He was trying to reach for a gun, but he was upside down in a truck. He couldn't reach it. Randall was arrested and rushed to hospital. He remained there for 2 days until he was taken to jail, where, 2 days after that, he died of natural causes.
Wow.
What actually killed Randall is unknown. It was just listed as natural causes, but it's believed to have been related to the crash. So the Appalachian Trail killer was dead. But the police, they eventually found his stash in the mountains because he'd been there for months after leaving home. They actually stumbled across his stash because they were alerted to it by 2 other hikers who had heard him screaming and shouting after he failed to kill Scott and Sean. I guess he knew they were gonna get away. At Randall's camp, they found his birth certificate, a police radio and scanner, glasses, women's underwear, and over 30 knives. They also found notes on occult incantations and a cassette. The cassette was creepy as all shit. It featured a man and a woman chanting and moaning, with a theremin playing in the background. He had a lot of notes that related to Wiccan stuff, but like the dark side of Wiccan, and other notes about Aleister Crowley, satanic summoning, demonic shit. It's like he'd been trying to conjure something in the woods when he had left. And maybe the attempted murders of Sean and Scott were part of this black magic, or whatever he was trying to do, part of some ritual. He was out there for a long ass time. Who knows what he was really up to? Something that comes up again and again in these stories of hikers, going on the trail or really hiking anywhere, is that like in an Into the Wild kind of way, people are embarking on journeys of self-discovery. Like in the case of Ron Sanchez and Scott Lilly. Unfortunately, they really ended up discovering a violent murderer out there. still out there in Scott Lilly's case. So the lesson here is, sure, put on those boots and get out there. Just make sure that they are steel toe cap hiking boots so you can kick any monsters out there in the nuts. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It always means a lot to me that you're here. Hope you enjoyed this little video, and the next one will be up, in a couple of days. But until then, if you're looking for more, there's a hell of a lot more, including the That Chapter podcast, which has a new episode, me and Keith telling some weird-ass stories out every Monday. But yeah, alright. Until then, please take care of each other and yourselves, because I love you. Mike out.
Man, my brothers and sisters, just the fact, y'all already know what I'm stuck on. Y'all already know what I'm stuck on. Just the fact that he killed 2 people 27 years ago, man. And y'all allowed this man to be able to kill more people. You let him out after 7.5 years. And another thing is the fact that his community, like his neighborhood, knew that he was a murderer. Everybody knew. It went Lion Ryan, whatever his name was, Lion something. Just the fact that all those people knew in the community that this dude was a killer. Me personally, my brothers and sisters, I don't know if I could have stayed in that community. Like, I don't know if I can be neighbors to somebody that I know is a murderer. My damn neighbor cannot be a murderer. Period. Because either I'm a goddamn want to kill your ass, or I'm always be thinking that you may want to kill me one day. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, no. This dude, oh man, the justice system be failing us. The government, judicial, whatever the word is, they be failing us. Oh, y'all. Like, come on, man. This dude should have never had the chance to get back out. But the one great thing about it is, thank God that they actually survived that time. Sean and Scott. They actually survived it after getting shot multiple times. Like I said, shout out to them anyway, man, for sticking together and helping each other through that crazy, horrific, almost life-ending situation. The second one, the dude who found on a trail, let's put ourselves in them shoes, my brothers and sisters. Can you imagine walking on a trail or walking anywhere and seeing a dead body like half buried? You can smell the deadness and stuff. Y'all get what I'm saying? Like, I hope to God I never have to go through that, because that's something that you will never forget for the rest of your life. You will have nightmares about that shit. Real talk, man. You'll be dreaming about and having nightmares about that encounter that you had walking up on that dead body, man. It's just an image that'll never leave your head, man. Never leave your freaking head. And the first one, crazy too, y'all. All these just, oh man, just be safe out there, my brothers and sisters, man. Like, the first one is the same thing like the third one, man. Trusting these strangers. Don't trust these strangers. In the first one, Sovereign wasn't really a stranger, because everybody knew he was like weird, like he was the mysterious guy off in the woods and stuff. And that's why I'm just like, man, I would have came out there with some on me for him. Oh man. And I know people love the hype, man. I get it, man. I get it. But it's just such a dangerous situation when you really just break it down. Like I was talking about, like the animals out there, and especially if you out there by yourself, you may get hurt, injured. You know, you out there in the woods, ain't no telling what might happen. You might end up falling off a little small cliff that you weren't paying attention to something. And I'm not saying you would die, but maybe you break your back or your legs or your arm or whatever. You can't get up, or you bleed real bad, like you need somebody to help you. So that's a danger with it. And then these freaking crazy ass people who could potentially be out there because you not around no police or nobody, no witnesses or nothing. It's just y'all out there, man. So like I said, my brothers and sisters, man, just be careful, y'all. Just be careful. And I digress. Great video by our boy Mike. Once again, as always, every Wednesday, we already know we're going to be in for another great one. I appreciate y'all coming on back again. As always, y'all already know that. Make sure you hit that like button, you comment, and subscribe if you ain't did that yet. And I'll see y'all tomorrow for Ryan from Tragedy Tales. But until tomorrow, my friends, gotta leave you with this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.